Adam, good to see you. Great to have you on the show and excited to talk about choose love, not ice. But before we jump into this, what I would say a vitally important conversation, especially for those of us in Wisconsin who almost feel like we're just waiting for any day to have an ICE presence and a significant level in our state. And I'm sure most people in other states are feeling the same way, which is why I wanted to make sure we had this conversation. But before I get too far ahead of myself, why don't you just introduce yourself and share a little bit about yourself for our listeners?
Yeah, it'd be my pleasure. And Matt, thank you so much for having me on. Thank you, Wisconsin Faith Voices for Justice, for doing this and for the amazing work that you do throughout the state. My name is Adam Friedman. I'm the campaigns director at Interfaith Alliance, a 32-year-old civil rights organization focused on protecting and expanding pluralistic, inclusive democracy for people of all faiths and beliefs. And I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, glad to have that was short and concise. It's like you practiced it. That was good. I think, and I'm going through like I've got the list of all the staff members for Interfaith Alliance. I'm just working through them, and by the time I'm retire, I want to make sure like every single one of you is on the podcast because we've had Guthrie
Yeah,
on, Paul's been on, now you're on. So we'll just keep working our way down the list until we get through all of you. So it'll be great.
perfect. Let me know if you need a recommendation. Everyone's great.
It'll be great. Well, we just appreciate I personally appreciate the connection that we have as an Interfaith Alliance affiliate, and it's without a doubt been one of the highlights and one of the things that has helped us really propel our work in the state of Wisconsin forward. And your leadership, you specifically, honestly, because you've been the one up to this last year who has worked directly with the affiliate networks, and it's been a great honor and so helpful. And anytime we need, sometimes you think, oh, you're going to have this national partner, it'll be difficult to get to them. But anytime we reach out, whether that's myself or Rhonda with Wivik, I mean, the response is immediate and the help is so meaningful. So just wanted to make sure I said that out loud for everybody to hear that Interfaith Alliance is incredible and so supportive, and the mission that you guys have is so vital right now. Speaking of, speaking of, we're all scrambling and we're all working hard, and I feel like with the new administration that we've all been dealing with, we knew a little bit about what was coming, but I don't know that any of us could have looked, a year plus ago. I'm not sure that too many of us would have seen as much as we've seen this year. I don't know if we saw that it was going to get this dark and the depths were going to be where they are today. And so I feel like, maybe for a while there, we were all scrambling to just say, okay, this is real. Like they're actually doing what they said they were going to do. And even worse, the violence in the streets and things like that. And so there felt like a little bit of scrambling early on. But what I've been really proud of the interfaith community and just, you know, um, all of us together. There's this sense of togetherness that's moved from scrambling and reacting to now doing a lot of preparation work. And here in Wisconsin, I can speak to what we've got going on is that, we've seen what's happened in Minneapolis as everybody has, and we've seen what's been happening in Chicago like everybody has, and we're right in between, those two states, obviously. And so we've been working really hard to get prepared for a similar presence in our state, and some of the training that Interfaith Alliance has been putting out and continues to put out, and then the Choose Love Not Ice campaign has been extremely helpful. So I'm getting long-winded, Adam, but why don't you share a little bit about your heart behind the Choose Love Not Ice campaign and a little bit about what it is?
Yeah. Well, Matt, I really appreciate the chance to chat with you about this. And I have to reciprocate the work that you're doing, that Rhonda's doing. It's it helps us at the national office, know where that North Star is for folks really doing the work on the ground. So for anyone who's a first-time listener, uh, stay listening, lean in with Matt and Rhonda. They're a great team doing great work.
Oh, thank
Um,
you.
Oh, absolutely. And to your question, I'll say what you identified, I think is so right. We're in this moment where things were very shocking and painful. Um, and I think for a lot of folks, we've been feeling this sense of, for some, powerlessness, and for a lot of us, we're seeing how this is hitting home.
Mhm.
And I think collectively, folks are saying, even if I'm feeling sad, even if I'm feeling angry, I got to do something because this is affecting me and my neighbors. We're seeing this in our communities, and we're going to come together and take that first step, do something. And that's really what a lot of our trainings right now, what the Choose Love, Not ICE campaign is all about. It's about taking a first step, doing something, and doing it in community with folks around the country, which I think is another really important piece of this, right? You mentioned being in between Minneapolis and Chicago, having that sense of we need to be ready because we've seen what happens. And part of what's been so inspiring, in addition to folks turning from, we've been caught flat-footed here to we're being proactive now, we're preparing, is folks learning from one another across the country and expanding this interfaith community across states, across geography, across traditions, right? And so what we're trying to do is be in touch with folks around the country and hear from them. All right, what kind of trainings do you need? What do you need to be learning about? And who's that voice you need to hear from? And so I'll just mention as an aside that we have some great trainings coming up. We already have some out with amazing folks that are on the ground in Minneapolis, speaking about how they've been doing organizing, that have been doing faith-based de-escalation work, Kingian nonviolence for years, talking about how they're leaning into uh, making sure tensions stay low at some of these actions, right? A whole slate of these trainings coming up. And so, look, I want to make sure folks look out for that, but we're really here to talk about Choose Love, Not ICE, right? And this is one of our big campaigns for the year, and we kicked it off right around Christmas and Hanukkah toward the end of 2025 with an ad. Right, this ad, I'll say it was a hard watch, but it was an important one, and it contrasted the images from the season, what folks would expect lighting their trees, being in their houses of worship, celebrating with their families, and ICE abuses, right? The videos we've all seen now of folks working for our government with support from elected officials and folks who have given them broad mandate to inflict violence against our own communities. Taking these actions we know are not only at times illegal, but also deeply unjust and an affront to our morals. And what we asked folks to do after watching that ad was go to a website we had and lean into our campaign. So everyone who's leaning into that campaign, who's signing up, is going to get all the information we're putting out about our trainings. And for folks on the ground who are our local partners, like Matt and Wisconsin Faith Voices for Justice, um, are we're getting to work together on ensuring that there's a permission structure for folks to say no, for folks to say we're choosing love. These actions do not represent us. And so the way folks are doing that is through op-eds, right? Getting their voices out there in the media, by having this message in their newsletters. Folks who are subscribed to Wisconsin Faith Voices for Justice's newsletter have been seeing this message getting out. And we also have things like placards and palm cards to share the message really tangibly. So you can bring a palm card to the next rally you go to, the next planning meeting, make sure folks are scanning it, joining this campaign. And these placards, we're hoping folks put them up in the windows of their houses of worship to let their community know not only this is a safe congregation, we're choosing love, we're choosing our community, but saying for any other congregation that's not sure if they can speak out right now, you're not alone, you're part of an interfaith community, and we're saying this together.
Yes, and speaking of those placards and palm cards, if you, I just got a nice box last week, Adam, and that Nikki sent out, and if anybody that's listening wants to get their hands on those, just reach out to me directly at matt@wifaithvoices.org, and we'll send them to you and make sure that you have them. Yeah, so much of what you said is important. When this podcast comes out, that training that you're launching will be out, which is great. And so there will be a link to that in the show notes here. Um, and what you said is so vital that a lot of the work that probably we both do is connected to faith communities. But the exciting thing about what I'm starting to see, I'm sure nationwide, but certainly in Wisconsin, is I'm getting calls from the most random people that are just asking the same question. All right, what do I do to protect my community, or what do I do to make a difference? I think it was maybe last week I got a call from a guy who's a professional artist in a rural town in Wisconsin who had no faith connection, overtly said, I'm not a person of faith at all, but I found your information. It looks like you're doing some important work. What can we do in our small rural town? And so, we helped them organize an event for like 12 of his friends that he just wanted to get together to start doing the work there as well. I'm doing a nonviolent resistance training way in the northern part of Wisconsin, for a number of clergy, and so it's really exciting to see just everybody ask that same question. And I think we've seen, through Interfaith Alliance, through other organizations, some great, what I would call kind of umbrella type of training. Here's some general nonviolent resistance training. Here's some know your rights training. And now what we're starting to see, at least in my perspective, is we're kind of niching down and figuring out, okay, this is some training that you might need because you're this person in this area who does this. And that's the training that you all are putting out that I'm really excited about, because it's not another kind of large training that's a bit of an umbrella that's supposed to be meant for everyone. The type of training that you're doing is something where you can go into this module and kind of, explain who you are and why you're there. And then Interfaith Alliance is almost going to, handpick some training that's going to fit for you. So explain that a little bit.
Yeah, so we and oh man, it's when you lay it out, I'm like we got to make sure this is spot on for folks. It's We're really trying to ensure that folks, because we know you know the issues you face better than we do. We want to make sure you have a whole lot of options to choose from. And I know this language is a little crass in light of why we're getting trained, but it's a choose your own adventure, right? And so what folks can expect is to go onto our website, to share who they are and why they're showing up. And then you can either go through all of our offerings, and we'll have a few different of those kind of broad trainings where you can get acquainted if you're starting out for the first time and want some general information. But then we'll also have, hopefully in the next few months, as we continue to record with different experts, dozens and dozens of modules where folks can say, all right, I'm from this faith tradition, so I want to hear from an expert that's, say, doing congregational organizing with the Evangelical Lutheran Church. And I also want a little bit more de-escalation. So I'm going to hear from Reverend Date M, leader at Faith in Action, who's been leading these kinds of de-escalation trainings for over a decade. And then I also, I'm clergy, and I'm not sure how to kind of lean into this moment. And I want to make sure I'm preaching in a way that lives out my values, but I'm also holding different considerations, around my congregational makeup. And so you can hear from a clergy person who's navigating that same question on how they've been preaching and what they recommend, what they've seen work for them, right? And so what we're trying to do is make sure folks can pull together something that meets their needs so they don't have to sit through something. I should say it's all good information. You're not sitting through anything. But in general, that feeling of I'm watching an hour and a half training, I need specific information. We're trying to condense it down for people, give them, 15 to 20-minute videos with folks who have been doing this in their local communities, in national organizations you might be familiar with, have worked with before, really teaching one specific thing that folks are asking about in a way that's applicable, that's relatable, that speaks to folks' needs in their communities. So
Yeah,
I'm
and
excited.
yeah, I am too. It makes so much sense to me, and I also love, you and I probably sit through more hour and a half webinars than we'd like to admit, right? But this is what we do for a living, so it's fine. But a lot of other people who are raising kids, career people, all of that, the hour and a half after work kind of thing may get old after a while. So the fact that this is a little bit more, bite-sized pieces that is very specific is wonderful. And I want to just put this out there in a world that in a perfect world where we're not dealing with what we're dealing with. I'm sure Interfaith Alliance, all of us what we do is we take our time, we work real hard to put out some sort of training and we package it real beautiful and we put it all out at the same time. But we're not living in those times. We're living in a time where every day feels like we're learning something new. Every day has a new volatility to it. And so Interfaith Alliance and all of us are working. And when we get something done, we're just putting it out. And so be patient, as this continues to roll out, we'll keep you up to date of what Interfaith Alliance is putting out with the Choose Love Not ICE campaign, and it's gonna continue to just build as more needs come about, and so we're just gonna throw this out there as it is on is it the 24th? Is that when it's officially going out?
25th.
25th.
So right after our official interfaith nonviolent civil resistance training for No Kings 3, where we're going to be talking with all sorts of amazing folks around the country about how we can organize pre-No Kings action interfaith gatherings and then show up as an interfaith community to No Kings 3. Right after we do a little training on that on Wednesday night, the 25th, we're going to be also doing a little demo of this training platform and making sure that folks have access to it. They can jump in there and start learning with us.
That's amazing. And like I said, when this comes out, it'll be probably a week after that. Is that No Kings training going to be recorded? Is that something that people can get their hands on if they weren't able to show up at that
Oh,
moment?
absolutely. We encourage it.
Perfect, perfect. All right, let's talk about that because No Kings 3 is coming up. I might totally get this date wrong because I'm not looking at it. I think it's March 28th. Is that right?
That was very impressive.
Nailed it. So, and Interfaith Alliance is taking the lead from from an interfaith standpoint, correct?
That's
Um,
right. Yeah, we're on the steering committee and we've been leaning in.
and so a lot of us have been a part of maybe one of the first two or both of the first two. What can we expect with No Kings 3? And is it something that if we've been to the first two, that we kind of understand what we're doing for the third one, or is there something different that we need to know?
It's a great question. My hope is that everyone will go and the process will be familiar. You're showing up in community with folks that, might be from your town or your city, kind of with this shared message. My hope is that what's different is every one of these No Kings events will be twice as big.
There we go.
Um, so we're going for that 3.5% number. We're trying to turn out tens of millions of people across the country. And I have to acknowledge, what people are speaking about while the message of No Kings is central, I think might be a little different because the context in which we're doing this is different, right? Uh, we've lost, folks. We've seen Americans that have been killed, at the hands of ICE, and that changes the tone for a lot of folks. I think we're going to see more and more people coming from a broad spectrum, uh, geographically, politically, ideologically, because we know this isn't the country that we want to live in. It doesn't represent our values.
Yes, and No Kings is this incredible movement, and one of the things I love about it is, kind of I mean, this is the first time I've seen something like this show up in rural towns. And, I think of Wisconsin specifically. Like, there's some really small towns way up north in our state that are doing No Kings rallies, which is, I've never seen anything like that. So to see kind of this massive action is incredible. Talk about the 3.5%, because you glanced off it and you and I know what you're talking about, but I want to make sure everybody gets a chance to hear this because it's important.
Oh yeah, this is some real interesting research. So if we have any folks who like numbers tuning in, I'll just mention the names of the researchers. You got to check them out. But Maria Stefan and Erica Chenoweth, two amazing academics, researchers, who we have the pleasure of working with, have done all this fascinating research on both authoritarian regimes and democracies that have kind of struggled and lost their way, trying to be a democracy over the past 100 years. And what they've found is that when 3.5% of the population engages in sustained civil resistance and non-cooperation work, which means visible mass mobilizations like No Kings, and also those behind the scenes conversations with maybe your friend at the bar who holds some different values than you do. but you're not trying to change their mind on what they believe in, but you're trying to say, hey, we gotta support democracy together. When that work happens and 3.5% of the population takes it on, we see a movement toward a stronger democracy in these countries, these examples throughout history. And so what that means for us in the US is 3.5% is a great kind of litmus test in a way, right? It's not that we'll get to this number and magically everything will feel amazing. It's that when we get to this number, it's an indicator, right? It shows that uh, so many people are turning up in the streets. All this amazing work is happening behind the scenes, and it signals to us we're doing it right. And as long as all of our ducks in a row, we're mobilizing the amount of the population that needs to be engaged in this work to make a real change.
Yes. Now, when we talk about, there's been a lot, again, this will be the third No Kings, and we've had all throughout the nation a lot of marches, a lot of people going out to the streets, which is vital. It's a really important part of this nonviolent action to create change, but it's not the only part. And I think there's been some people, and I've had these conversations, and it's fine. It's understandable why somebody would think this, but the question that sometimes comes my way is, what's that going to do if we just all go out to the streets? And I often respond and say, well, it's not, that's just step one. And so when we're talking about, and you're brilliant at this work, and when we talk about nonviolent resistance, getting out in the streets is really what I would argue is the first step in a larger process. But to see true change, which I think we're going to see in our country, I'm hopeful. What do we need beyond that? So say, somebody goes out to No Kings 3, it's their first time doing that, and then they feel inspired, but I don't want them to go home and feel like that was it. So what's the, even with Rhonda, with Wisconsin Interfaith Voter Engagement Campaign, we're talking about kind of starting a new mentality of vote and yes, get out there
Mm,
and vote. And what else can you do? And so I like, when we're talking about this, it's like, yes, go out to the streets, march, and what would that and be in your perspective?
yeah, that's how we all got to be thinking, right? And I think there are a lot of different ends, right? It's different based on where you're coming from, what you as a person feel comfortable doing. I've seen a spectrum of great ands, right? For some folks, it's coming home from the No Kings March, getting onto their computer and researching companies that contract with ICE, and then saying, you know what? My money has power. I'm not going to be buying goods, given my dollars, which is my financial vote, to countries that are acting in a way that's at odds with my values. For some people, it's getting together with a group of people and kind of doing what we call like some dreaming, some building like of counter institutions, right? It's saying, okay, we know things are really challenging right now, but I want to live in a country where neighbors know each other, where neighbors show up for each other. And so that's what they go out and build. They get to know all their neighbors, right? And put a signal group together and make sure that neighbors are meeting each other's needs, right? Kind of like a buy nothing Facebook group, but that next level. It's so it can look different for different folks. Other things, if some people are saying, I want to take on a little more risk, I see what's happening in this moment. Maybe the kids are out of the house. I've had the conversation with my partner, and I want to participate in civil disobedience, right? Tradition as old as faith is in the United States, right? And that's how some folks are showing up too. I think for all of us, the questions we can ask ourselves are not just what's the next step we're going to take, but how much risk do we want to lean into, and how are we uniquely positioned, right? What are the resources we have, whether it's a big network of friends and family in our communities, whether it's the financial ability to say, I'm not going to shop at these places and maybe I'll spend a little bit more money to support local businesses. Or it's, hey, you know what? I got some free weekends. I'm going to drive to some communities around the state, and I'm going to be meeting up with folks who are doing this work, and we're going to make sure all of us are connected and learning from one another, right? Whatever it is, there's that next step all of us can take. that feels right for us, right? And do it in community with other folks. I think
Yeah,
that's also really important.
I love that. And I get countless emails and calls of people just asking, okay, what's that next step for me? What can I do? And I encourage people to do that. Feel free to reach out to us at Wisconsin Faith Voices for Justice because we are deeply connected with the vast majority of Wisconsin organizations doing this work. And so we can absolutely give you some options and ways that you can use your time and energy in this fight against authoritarianism. But if you're listening to this and you're not even in Wisconsin, still reach out because, with Interfaith Alliance, we have connections all throughout the country. And so we can certainly at least point you in the right direction because we don't want anybody who wants to be out there, who wants to be part of this 3.5%. We don't want you feeling like you don't know what to do. And we're definitely here to help guide and direct as best as we possibly can. Um, so I was in a meeting last night, and it was with this beautiful interfaith group that's working hard in this space with our immigrant population here in Wisconsin. And they were, I mean, a lot of the meetings that you and I are in probably feel heavy, right? This one felt like it had this additional weight to it. I'll say you could tell like they just felt a bit defeated, extremely angry. All of those things were pretty understandable. And so most of the meeting I felt, usually I feel pretty confident leading a Zoom meeting. That's all we do, right? But this one, I just felt like I was struggling to get everybody to focus and we were able to kind of bring it in and talk about some things that we were going to focus on. But then at the end of the conversation, because I could just feel this kind of spirit of defeat on the call, I just said, before we go, I said, I want to challenge you to go to bed tonight. And before you go to bed, I want you to close your eyes and think about a time 1 year, 2 years, 3 years in the future where you're going to wake up tomorrow morning and realize that we overcame all of this. And the whole call just you could feel like a lift and there was smiles and there was and so I as people of faith with that kind of idea in mind, and we talk about this a lot in Wisconsin, how do we, in the midst of all of this, how do we help people maintain a glimpse or a spirit of hope? Because that hypothetical, that's really who we are as people of faith, hypothetically, as people of hope. We're supposed to, that's why
Yeah.
our work is so vital right now. So how can we do that?
Yeah. That's that's a beautiful question. And I love that example, right? You're bringing um, the value of dreaming, right?
Hmm.
Of that faith that we will get through this and we will bring about something better to these conversations. And I think it's a personal question, right, for everyone, how we lean on our faith to navigate. I'll say for me, um, there are little things that I do, that I draw from my faith that give me like some energy, some peace, some hope, and remind me that justice is inevitable, right? And it's our job to connect point A and point B. And so what that looks like for me is I'll wake up in the morning and sometimes I'm tired. I've been up late working the night before, but I say a prayer. I in Judaism there's this prayer where we have a list of things that we thank God for. And I always start with, thank you God for removing sleep from my eyes, and waking me up, getting me ready for this day. And then at night, sometimes, if I'm feeling sad or downtrodden with all the weight of the moment, um, I'll sing whatever song is stuck in my head from synagogue. Um, there are so many songs for peace, I think that are often rattling around in my head. And I think for so many of us, our faith traditions or spirituality or tradition of conscience, whatever it is, provides a deep well of not only that feeling of hope, which can be kind of intangible, that feeling of faith in something better, but also a rich tradition around how we hold it, how we celebrate it. And I think to give that to other people is sometimes to um, be an example of that faith or that hope. Sometimes it's holding somebody's hand or giving them a big hug when you know they need it. Sometimes it's singing a song with them, bringing some energy into the space. And sometimes it's hearing where people are, and being with them through a hard moment and creating that space, asking that question like you did. I know it's really hard right now. In the future, when we've won, or when not even about winning, right? When we're in a better place, we've done our work. What does it feel like? Because we know we're going to get there and we should start thinking about it now. I think that's what we can do.